You know, sometimes you just need a long embroidery. Sometimes you need a long, long embroidery. Sometimes you need a long, 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 long embroidery. So I'm working on the Brother Stellaire today, and there's lots of ways to not only do a long embroidery, but I'm going to be embroidering a ribbon sash, for a wreath, and there's lots of ways to get everything looking just right. And I do have like a trick for not only placing this on the stabilizer, but easy way to place what you need to stitch. So let's talk about how you prepare for a long embroidery and some tricks on how to get it stitched. I'm Cathy, and this is Sewing Tech Talk. Let's do some long embroidery. So I'm stitching on a really wide ribbon today, and I'm making a sash that's going to go on my wreath. I was taking down my wreath from the holidays, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could just change out different messages on it? I thought it'd be kind of fun and festive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sash for my wreath, and it's on that large piece of ribbon. Now, it doesn't have to be a ribbon wreath, obviously. This maybe you're going to be doing the border on a quilt. You want a fun message to go around on the outside, or even the sashing of a quilt, and you want some special message in there. That's, you know, quilts can be kind of big. So there's lots of different applications for making a long embroidery. It could be the hem of a skirt. So what happens is sometimes it's easier, if you're not using a ribbon like I'm going to be using, is if you're using fabric, just cut it a little bit bigger, go ahead and do your placement. That way you're just worried, you're concerned with the placement that everything's going to flow, and well, it doesn't have to be as straight if you're going to be cutting it out a little bit later. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes the stitching is going to go over the edge of the seam. So sometimes you just might have to just piece your whole quilt and just stitch it, embroider it that way. So there's lots of different considerations. I've written a handout for this in all of my other videos. If you go to the link in the video or mooressew.com/shop, then you can find all of my different handouts there. So that way you can kind of have some of these tips and tricks to putting everything together. So now obviously I'm working on the Stellaire, and it does have a pretty big hoop. The longest is 14 inches, and well, my little banner is going to be a little bit longer than that. So what we need to do is we need to bring up our design and figure out what we can do at any one time. Obviously, if it's going to be super long, we're going to have to do it in segments. So that's going to be some work that we're going to do on the screen of the machine in Embroidery Edit. And we're going to keep those different segments in order, obviously, so that we're going to have our embroideries that we can do one after the other. Now, one little trick, ask me how I know, if you're going to be doing text, you spell check. Not on the machine, but maybe on a computer or your mobile device or something like that. And when you're putting it into the screen of the machine, double check that you haven't, well, put all this time in and have a glaringly misspelled word. It can happen, I know. Okay, so there's lots of different, we're going to be doing text today, but there's lots of different places that you can get a border design. There's all the different, you can obviously buy one. Built into the machine, there's a bunch of borders here, and that would be kind of a pretty one. You can see when it comes up, it's 2.19 wide by 5 inches, and I could do that in a repeated basis. Bunch of different ones. This one might be kind of fun. It's a little bit wider. We do have sizing in the machine that recalculates stitches. So if you find one you like, there's a pretty good chance it's going to probably fit on your ribbon. Or obviously you could just make use regular fabric and make a ribbon-like project. So, but I'm going to use text today, and I'm going to be using some of the larger text in the machine. So if you come here underneath, there's where the categories of the different embroideries are. This is the text that you kind of just spell out like a typewriter, but this is the very large text, and these are treated like individual letters because they're so big. So I'm just going to show you the trick for putting it in the hoop. So let's just make something small that we're not going to be dividing right now. So I'm going to choose this text, and I'm going to say hello. And so here's my H. Obviously that's 5.28, 5¼ inches wide. It's a little bit large for my ribbon. That's really not a problem because, like I said, we have size calculation. So when I hit set and I come up here to edit, what happens is I choose size, and then I choose the little zigzag with the 2 arrows. You're always going to get the message so that it's going to put it to the original size and angle. I'm going to be bringing in lots of different letters. So here's my tip number 1 is don't move them around until you resize them as you bring in one at a time. So I'm going to say okay, because it's just going to move it back to the center anyway. So here we go, and let's just touch this key to bring everything down. And you know what? 3.17 by 3.38, that should work for my ribbon. And I'm going to bring it up out of the way. Okay, we're going to add. Let's have hello, right? So we're going to come back to that very same spot, and I'm going to use a lowercase. This alphabet does have lowercase. There's my E right there, and I'm going to hit set. Now remember, I'm not going to move it around until I resize it, and it's a little bit big for my H. So I'm going to come up here, size. There you go. Remember, it's always going to put it there, and then I can take it down. Now I don't have to take it all the way down. Once I've restarted to resize it, I can move it on up, and I can see if I like that. It could be bigger, it could be smaller, it could be all different things. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my grid on my screen. This is just like a superimposed grid to help me line up letters. So I find that by going into the settings, and there's the grid. I have a 3/8 inch, I have a 1 inch, I can just have crosshairs. I have lots of different options, but I'm using the 3/8 inch because I want a good, like, close visual to see. I'm going to say okay. Now I can bring in I'm going to do hello, so my 2 different L's and my O, my exclamation part. One thing you want to make sure that you're thinking about is if you're bringing this down, say there's the H right there, here's the E. I'm going to have my letters, some of my letters have upper extenders and some have lower extenders. When you're putting a word together, some alphabets have very tall upper extenders and very low lower extenders. So keep that in mind. When you're putting it together, if I had a lower extender on this and I had to have it way down there, that might make it too big for my ribbon. So just keep that in mind with the alphabet that you choose. So there it is. I have my first 2 letters. I went ahead, I knew you were coming, so I went ahead and put everything together, and let me show you what I did. Okay, we're going to delete both of these. And let me bring it in from the memory of the machine. There it is right there. I already brought it in, and I hit set. Now, it's in the lower right-hand corner, and that brings me to my next tip that I'm going to talk about. Now, when you're doing something that can't fill the entire hoop, what you're going to do is you're going to use some sort of a stabilizer that's sticky to kind of hold it in position. So I'm going to be using Floriani Perfect Stick. It's a tear-away sticky stabilizer. And what it has the stabilizer with sticky on it. It's not a permanent sticky, but it has a paper-like sheet on the top of it that you release after you get it hooped. Now, traditionally, what you do is you hoop the stabilizer with the paper size up, you score around the entire hoop, you take that paper off, and then the entire surface of the hoop is sticky. Well, I was getting ready to do that the other day, but I thought, well, that's kind of dumb. Once I do this entire hoop and make it all sticky, well, I'd like some of the parts of it that I could be able to use later. So here's my idea. Why don't we only just make a window that we need exactly for the placement of my ribbon? Let me show you what I did. So here's my hello, and what I did is around it, when I'm in the embroidery screen, I can choose a basting box. I already have one, but let me show you where I found it. There's that basting box right there. What that does is that's going to stitch around the outside edge of the design to kind of hold it down. And I usually do that when I'm using like a sticky stabilizer anyway, if I have a fabric that can tolerate having the holes around the outside edge. But I want it to be just slightly bigger than just around the outside edge of the hello. In other words, I want to use this to make a window in that sticky stabilizer. So when I come up to settings, I can choose the distance that this basting box is. So when I come down, let me go over here, and there's the embroidery basting distance. And I can change that. Standard, whoops, standard is 0.2. I really don't need it that big because I want to be a little bit more precise. But you can use anything that you want, just not 0. So I made that a certain distance. I think I did it at 1.1, right? And so then when you select that basting box, it's going to put that box around the outside edge. And you can see my very first thing that I'm going to stitch, well, that's going to be that basting box, right? So let the machine show me where that's going to be. I left the paper on the top. I left the paper on the top of the hoop, and I'm just going to stitch around the outside edge of that. So when I put the hoop in the machine, and I don't put thread in the needle, then I'm just going to have a perforation going around there to show me where to cut that box out, to remove the paper just there. Now I've already done it, but let me show you where to tell the machine that I don't have thread in the needle, and that's okay. We're going to go back to settings, and I'm going to come over where the upper and bobbin thread sensor is. On this machine, it's on page 4, and I'm going to turn that off. Now I've already done it. What I did is I turned that off. I have no thread in the needle, and I stitched around the outside edge of that basting box with no thread in, and it gave me a guide. I'm going to turn it back on because I've already done it, but let me show you what happened. So here are my little perforations, and I just took the edge of my scissors and I went around exactly along those perforations. I even used a ruler to help guide me. And now I'm just going to peel off the paper exactly there. And now I have a perfect little sticky window to place my ribbon. So I can put my hello in there. Notice how I put it down a little bit lower in the hoop, and I know I'm not going to hit my other previous embroidery. This is a great way to save on the stabilizer, right? So, how did I know where that went? Well, I used something called My Design Snap, and I took a picture of what's in the hoop. It was my welcome that I'd previously stitched, and I sent that image to the machine. Now you can turn that image on and off. Let me turn it on for you. If I come up here, let's turn that image back on, and I can see my previous stitching. I use this for placement, and we're going to use this a little bit later to stitch the last little letter on my welcome, the last little E. So now I have my window. All I need to do is take my ribbon, which I'd already put some fusible stabilizer on. Let's find the middle, and we're going to put that right on my little window. Make sure you have it kind of centered. Pretty slick, right? So I can make sure that I have everything put exactly where I want it to be. Now I'm actually going to baste around this also. So since I've already basted, I went back in my plus and minus, and I'm just going to do this over, but this time with thread. So now I'm going to stitch out my hello. I've already stitched out the beginning of my welcome without the E, but when we come back after I stitch my hello, I want to show you another fun trick for adding the placement. Not only can we use the features of the machine, I can use my design snap to get a picture. I can use the 2-point positioning that's built into the Stellair, but I can also use something that I've already stitched to help me put that last little letter in place. Are you intrigued? Well, let's stitch out hello, and then when I come back, I'll show you what I mean. Hello, I'm back. This stitched out really pretty. I think those built-in larger designs just really turn out really beautiful. So this was just one word that could fit easily into this, pretty large hoop. But like I said, sometimes when you're doing a long embroidery, you really need to do it in segments. Now, the very first one that you bring up, the very first segment, you're going to have to kind of play with it and see what's going to fit. The first one, here's my welcome, and you see I pretty much filled up the hoop. That's fine because you're just doing the first initial placement. But each additional one, try not to fill up the entire hoop. Why? Because you're going to be able to want to move it around to make sure the subsequent embroideries match. So don't fill up the whole hoop because then you won't have room to maneuver, to dock the ship as it were, right? So here's my welcome. I did the first thing. Now I already took it out of the hoop, and so I'm going to do this next one. I'm going to do it the standard way. So what I did is I went ahead and I hooped up my sticky stabilizer, my sticky tearaway stabilizer, and I scored around the outside edge of the hoop, and I peeled that paper away. What then I did is I took the very last part of that segment I'm going to add on, and I went ahead and placed it inside that hoop. Now I'm going to use my design snap to take a picture of what is in the hoop, the way I placed it. I tried to place it as straight as I could, but you want to know exactly where it is. The one thing that you have to remember when doing my design snap is you have to see the top and the bottom of the hoop. You have to see the little black and white stickers, and because that's how the machine knows where everything goes. So all I did is I folded my long piece up to make sure that those black and white areas were exposed. All you do is you select design positioning, you hold it over the hooped item, you hold it and it goes 3, 2, 1, ready to go, and we send that off to the machine. So I have that image exactly where I need it to be. Now, I have it so that I have my very last letter in part of that design, part of that hooping. And let me show you, I'm going to use that as part of my placement for the next one. So what the heck am I talking about? Let's come back to welcome. And I've already done it, but I want to show you what I did. So now this is in the memory of the machine. I can go ahead and manipulate it. What I need after the M is I need an E. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the different letters off so that I just have my E and my M. I could have brought the other E in again if it wasn't part of the other word, obviously. So we're going to delete that. Okay, and delete that. Okay. Now I have my M and my E. Now why did I keep the final M? Because what I did is when I put my letters together, I had to be concerned about the spacing of the letters. And I really didn't know where that E needs to be. So I did a couple of tricks. So I took my M and I used the move keys on the machine to move it straight up. And then I selected my E, and whoops, it moved. I didn't want it to do that. Okay, let's go undo so it goes back here. So let's move that E down. I didn't want it to move down, so let me make sure I touch the keys in an appropriate manner. There we go. Now let's pick the M and let's put that straight up. Now what I'm concerned about is how this looks. Make sure it looks exactly like I want it to be. Because it could be up, it could be down. I'm truly trying to hit so it just looks just right. I can see that I want my E down maybe just a little bit. So I'm going to select my E and move it down. This is all about just what looks good. When you print or you handwrite, you automatically know the distance between the letters. You just figure that out. It's called kerning, but you have to be able to see the other letter, and your magnificent computer brain knows exactly how to do it. So once we see it, we can see exactly what we want. So there we are, and I know that that kind of looks good. And so that's what I saved. But the other trick I used is I want to make sure when I'm bringing my E on up, if I want to use that 2-point positioning, I need to know where these different parts are on that M. Now I've already done it, so let me show you exactly what that looks like. I'm going to take my E, we'll get rid of it temporarily. Now I've already put this in memory, so we're okay. Now here's my M. I'm just going to move it here because I want to show you how I put thread tags in to make sure that I can use 2-point positioning. It's another function of the machine for placing the design. So when I'm in Embroidery Edit, do you see the series of 9 boxes? I touch that. That's called the border function. A border function, get it? That's kind of what we're doing. So I want to put a thread tag here and here. So when I touch this little arrow, and I've already done it, you see how it puts a thread tag here, here, and here? That's important because the shape of the letter, I don't know where the outside part is. I don't know where the inside part is. So what happens is it puts a thread tag that's easily removed there. Let me show you what that looks like. I'll bring it up by the screen so that you can see. After it stitched the M, it went ahead and put a thread tag here, here, and here. So I can see exactly where to place that if I'm doing the 2-point positioning. So if I'm only using my E, I can use that feature to actually match it on in. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so this is the fun part. So I'm going to say okay, and we'll come home again because I've already put my M and my E in the machine. So we're going to come to Embroidery. We're going to bring up the memory of the machine. There's my M and E right now, and it hits set. Now, like I said, what I did is I took a picture with my design snap of how this is placed in the hoop. You put the hoop back on the machine after you've taken that photo from the app, and you can send it on in. Now I can turn it off and turn it on, and here it is. There is that image. Now I can see where my M was, and I already know how I've placed my E. So all I really need to know how to do is know how to place my M exactly where I want it to be. It's pretty simple. So if I go into Embroidery, I still have this, and I can move everything around so that I can see exactly that that M is placed exactly over the previous M. And I already know that I have that distance. I can bring it up a little bit closer to see if I've done it correctly. There we go. Well, heck, I need to move it down a little bit, and I know I can do that. So do you see how keeping the other letter kind of works? So let's come on in here. Let's go to return, obviously, and I'm going to use my move keys to move everything. If I need to lock everything together, I can select all, I can move them both together, and I can move everything down just a little bit so that I can see that's exactly where I want it to be. Pretty sweet, right? Now I know that's exactly where I want it to be. So let's put it in the memory of the machine so I can show you something else. I'm going to throw that in the memory of the machine. There we go. Okay, now what if I didn't save my last letter? What if I only have my E? Let's get rid of the M. Okay. Now, I can use the marks that are already on here to use that 2-point positioning if I don't have my other M to position it. So when I go to embroidery, I have 2-point positioning here, and I can use those marks. So I can say I want to line it up with these marks up here. I have this one, this one. I think this one would be a good one. Okay, next. And I want to go this direction. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm lining it up with those previous thread tags so that I know everything is perfectly done. When I go next, on the screen of the machine, I'm going to make sure that I have that mark moved exactly right on top of that thread tag. So I'm going to move that mark down so that that's there. Perfect. I'm going to go next, and I can see that that mark, well, I have to go up just a tiny bit, but I do, and then that's okay. Whew. That's 2 different methods for making sure that my E is at exactly the right spot. So let's review. I could have kept that last letter. I could have taken a picture, put the last letter on the top, made sure everything matches, not stitch my M because I've already stitched it, and went ahead and stitched that E. If I only had my E, I could use that 2-point positioning, and I can literally line it up with those previous thread marks. Pretty slick, right? So between all of the functions that this machine has, you can do a long, 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 long embroidery, and everything is going to match. Whether you're doing the sash on a wreath, the border of a quilt, this machine's going to, well, it's going to be your partner in getting everything straight. All I have to do is stitch my E, and I think I'm ready to do my wreath stash, and I can change it with the seasons. All I have to do is come up with a clever idea of what I want to say. So thank you for watching me today. I'm going to go ahead and stitch my last E, and George is going to tell you a lot more about the Stellaire, which is a great machine with lots of features so that you can, well, you can make everything perfect. Thanks for watching me today.
Thanks, Cathy. That was an incredible presentation. And so let's go over the special offer we have on the Brother Stellaire series. So we have the XJ2, which is their combination sewing and embroidery, and the XE2, which is dedicated embroidery. They both share the same embroidery features, which is a large 9.5 by 14 inch embroidery area with over 780 built-in embroidery designs, and of them, over 100 of them are Disney. It also has over 30 fonts and large, beautiful monograms. And with the fonts, you can edit in all kinds of arrangements. You can arc, you can array, you can even cut and paste and kern it in some custom ways. Speaking of customization, you can take a design and do an automatic applique around it. And with the matrix copy, you can copy this very quickly to make patches. And if we had the scan and cut, we can actually send it to the scan and cut out those patches, and then embroider them beautifully. An additional advanced technology is a new 2-point laser positioning. I can take something like a name and position it perfectly on a line. I can use it to do multiple hoopings and match them perfectly. I can even use it for edge-to-edge quilting. Now, part of what the Stellaire series offers is a special relationship with the scan and cut. They actually can marry together, so I can send an applique design right from my machine and it will cut it out perfectly for beautiful applique. But better yet, I can send a design from my scan and cut and turn it into embroidery. It also unlocks a new feature where I can choose one of the colors of my design, whether if it's a built-in design, I can choose that and turn it into applique. But let's take that heart that I sent over. I turn it into embroidery. I select the color, and now it's applique. Now let's bring over the third part of the piece. I want to create my own fabric, and I can do that with print moda. I took an image of a rose and I arranged it just in a beautiful kaleidoscope of color. And I printed that fabric and placed it on in the scan and cut. I took my design I created on the Stellair from the scan and cut, sent it over to the scan and cut it out, and I have one complete embroidery design created with that trifecta of creativity. Now the XJ2 also is a sewing machine, and it has a large 11.25 inch opening, beautiful lighting. It has 760 built-in stitches, from quilting stitches to applique to utility. It even has automatic stippling and some beautiful decorative stitches that are very, very wide. It also has an automatic 1/4 inch feature which moves the needle over a 1/4 inch from the foot, and you can use the laser guidance it has on there so you can just do some beautiful piecing. It also has amazing fabric control with an automatic fabric sensor, and this gives you the ability to sense multiple layers like in denim, or if I want to sew on some sheer fabric like this tricot, I can do that beautifully, or even working with elastics. It handles the fabric beautifully. If it's even more extreme, we can add the digital dual feed. This is a belt-driven feed system that gives perfect contact on the fabric. And so you see here with this marine vinyl, there's no slippage. I also can use it with such things as minky, which is hard to sew with, and of course, quilting. For more information on this incredible product, click on the link to see our current special offer. You can email us at customerservice@moores-sew.com or call us at 1-800-865-9664.